Welcome once again. Thank you for joining me. My name is Douglas Grummins, and today we're going to get into wheels again, chapter 8 of the book. And this part of the book is where I didn't know if I wanted to continue the book and make it a longer book, or just keep it a short book and keep it a little bit simple and not lose so many followers or readers as people get more and more into my work. Previously, in my other books, like Songs of the Buddhas, I kept it pretty short. I wrote about 4 songs, but in general, I came right to the point and tried to hit the nail on the head and reach the target of getting my message out to you. But I had so much more inside of me, trying to relay how wheels affect us and our lives, and how we compare our lives to life and death cycles of birth and death, completing a cycle. Just be aware that a lot about what I'm bringing up is kind of out there. Even for me, it's out there a little bit. And these are just thoughts that kind of came into my head as I was writing this book. And I had a lot of revelations while I was writing this book that, some of this has some truth behind it. Maybe not all of it, maybe half of it, but a lot of what I'm writing about rings of truth, even though there's no way it can be proven. So before we get into the work I want to discuss today, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I began meditating in 1996, and 2 years later, an occurrence happened to me that changed my life forever. And ever since May 3rd of 1998, I have immersed myself with the esoteric, with more and more about different religions, even Christianity, but mostly like Zen for the most part, and Tantra and Buddhism and all sorts of transcendental thoughts and meditations. From 1998 till 2009, I lived in Virginia Beach, and I spent most of my time, every day, reading books on those subjects I just mentioned, and I went around collecting all over the world every book on transcendentalism that I could find, and I just collected all these books, not knowing that I'd ever have enough time to read all of them, but the collection kept growing and growing, and I would find books in Greece or London and all the places I visited around the world. I would always find a book that I like, and I added it to my collection. So for over 20 years, I've been, immersed in love and meditation and all those things that come with one who meditates. And I flowered in a lot of ways, and now I have found time, that I've collected all these books, and I'm glad I did it while I had the money to do it. I can't say the same now, but now I have all these wonderful books, and I have time to read them. And now about 6 years ago is when I moved to Galveston, and I've resided there ever since. And I started writing my own books and started making these videos to share with you guys. So that's a little bit about me and a little bit about my background. And I guess now's a good time for us just to go ahead and get into the work. So we pick up where we left off. We're saying the mystics have found a way to get off the merry-go-round. They just had to let it all go. And I continue. I have heard that every 2,000 years the world goes through a spiritual cleansing cycle. After Buddha was enlightened, thousands who encountered him while he was still alive became enlightened. These thousands of people were the highest grade of their time. Their souls were ripened and ready to become enlightened. After Buddha passed, those who encountered him and missed being enlightened were of a lower state of being. I'm not saying they were inferior. They were just not ready, or they were not ripe enough to become enlightened. These beings of lower states are given many opportunities and many lifetimes to become enlightened. After Buddha passed, another incarnation of God came into existence. We call him Jesus. And many souls were enlightened when they encountered him, creating another stage or level. And after Jesus came, another person came named Bodhidharma. And many souls who encountered him became enlightened, creating another stage. With Bodhidharma's concept of Zen, several more masters came into existence. And as a natural progression, each stage would have lesser years in it than the prior stage. From one stage to the next stage, there should have been less and less souls that still need to become enlightened. So the progression of each stage would give every being from this 2,000-year period a chance to become enlightened. Until all the souls who encountered Buddha or his teachings finally became enlightened. After somewhere about 2,000 years, existence regathers its energy, and another man of Buddha's essence will grace the earth. This cycling period keeps the message fresh. After 2,000 years, too many interpretations and misinterpretations of the original message occur. Existence has created itself a fail-safe. The cycle starts afresh again. I will also say over a 2,000-year period, too much darkness falls on the planet. False prophets and pseudo religions pop up and cause mankind to spiral downward instead of levitating upward. Because of this, each enlightened master in his stage has an even harder job to combat darkness. This cycle and its varying stages form the shape of a pyramid. Exactly how many people become enlightened in each stage determines the amount of years in each stage. Some cycles may have only 6 stages, while some may have 7 or more, depending on how many souls remain unenlightened within the 2,000-year cycle. And Buddha was not the first person to become enlightened. He may have coined the term enlightenment, but the Jain religion, there were 24 Tirthankas preceding Buddha. Mahavira was the last of what they called the present-day phase of time. The Forsyas of the Jain religion predicted there would be only 24 Tirthankas in their time phase. They believed that everyone who encountered the original Tirthanka's message would have had many chances to become enlightened, and then their time cycle would have ended, and then a new cycle of creation would start all over again. The first Tirthankas must have lived 10,000 years before Mahavira. These Tirthankas were all living incarnations of God on earth. Instead of God ascending from heaven, they believed that we all rise to attain godliness. These Tirthankas were enlightened, but the term was different. So just exactly how far back does enlightenment go? Some say so far back that the Jains did not believe in a creator. Instead, they say this is the way it has always been, just a wheel that continually spins for eternity. Of course, this can never answer the age-old question of when it all began. It does, however, seem to be an answer as to why everything in nature seems to be either a clue or an indicator leading towards the evolvement of your soul into a godliness state of being. The Jain's train of thought vibrates with the same frequency as the teachings of Lao Tzu. This is the Tao, and from many differing views, the Tao can be found. The ancient Mayans developed what they called the pyramid of consciousness, where many believed that they mapped out the 9 stages of man's evolutions towards enlightenment. Unlike Carl Johann Kalimann's theories of the calendar mapping out our history starting from the Big Bang, I feel the stages of the Mayans referred to fall more in line with the Jain theory of consciousness evolving through a repetitive pattern of a 5,125-year cycle. The Mayan stages of 9 underworlds could be referring to each person's internal esoteric development instead of a time structuring dating back to the beginning of the universe. I say this because the pieces do not fit. Archaeologists have uncovered fossils of fully evolved human handprints in limestone dating back to an estimated 110 million years ago. Another fossil, even more interesting, was found near Delta, Utah, in an unearthed shale deposit with a footprint with what appears to be a sandal dating between 300 and 600 million years old. So somehow the pieces don't fit. So either our carbon dating system is totally wrong, or mankind has inhabited this world much longer than history would like us to believe. And how could a prehistoric man make a sandal? Or how could a hand no different than anyone's hand of today's have been made so long ago? Have I lost you yet? Okay, this is, like I said, parts of the book that even I was skeptical about putting them into the book. But anyway, I'll continue on. The Mayan cycle, or end date, was just the end of a 5,125-year cycle. But a cycle of what? My theory is we have entered a new age of understanding. We have all shifted into a time where we were able to accept newer concepts, allowing us the ability to answer life's deeper questions. We grow as a society who works together. A couple hundred years ago, a physicist would have been hung for suggesting the Big Bang Theory. Now today, many people have accepted the theory, so we have grown into a new age of understanding where we can accept more and more than we ever have. What is impossible to conceive 100 years ago is now possible, not only to conceive, but to be lived as well. Here I go on a ledge again. Okay, so back to the text. The Mayan cycle could have also predicted a shift in the poles by a few degrees. It is entirely possible that that could have affected parts of the world in a drastic way, causing earthquakes and tidal waves in some parts of the world, while other parts saw no effects at all. This could explain why Christian theorists say that their history only goes back 5,000 years, while other theorists say that the history of the earth and mankind is much older. The story of Adam and Eve, or the first two humans in Judaic history, could have been in a way a reality in one part of the world, while advanced civilized societies existed far away on other continents. We do know, or at least we are realizing, that everything works in cycles. How big the cycles or how small they are is not important. If this is true, then even stars go through a state of being and non-being. It is possible that the universe goes through a state of non-being and being. On what seems like a smaller side, we go through a continuous cycle of being and non-being. We live and we die just as the stars do. Somehow our energy and our essence forms again, and we live again. Life and death complete a cycle. If only life existed and no death, the world would lose its freshness and its newness. Also, imagine a world where people did not die, yet keep on being born. The world would collapse under the weight of starvation. God created the universe to be self-sufficient, a self-sustaining entity, and the only way to do it was to develop a cycle or a system of overlapping cycles. All the resources are limited, and everything just changes forms. Nothing is wasted. The mystics have written that there is nothing new in the universe, and physicists are now agreeing. How can there be anything new? Can God add to himself or take away from himself? The mystics and the wise ones of the past have said God is complete. He cannot add to himself and he cannot take away from himself. Therefore, are we not a piece of God? The question is, are we new or have we always existed? Are we not a piece of the whole? And how can the whole take away from itself or add to itself? If we have always existed, there should be some proof. Maybe the proof lies in the mysteries of such things as pyramids or other structures that we cannot explain. No matter what the outcome of all these discoveries that mankind is discovering every day, no matter what the outcome is, the key factor is consciousness. Consciousness evolves through mystical ways, and science has contributed as well. The world would have to put its trust into the scientists and those others involved in the excavation of ancient finds in order for the world to benefit from them. Modern-day science, in my opinion, is still barbaric in some ways. Scientists have the tendency to rape the subject matter before they realize how the subject could have benefited the world. Science in the future should be a cooperative union between mystics and scientists. Right now, our scientists are like cavemen with a Rubik's Cube. They might smash it against a wall and break it into pieces to study it. And after they have broken the cube into pieces, they perform many studies before they realize the cube was just a puzzle. This is exactly what has happened with the particle accelerator at CERN. In the most violent way, physicists have again raped nature, discovering the Higgs boson particle. While scientists hate the term God particle, the simple fact is that science can no longer deny that there is a force holding this universe together. And now the debate has moved from a single force to multiple forces, thus creating the theory of a multiverse. If I understand the scientists and their theory of a multiverse, what they are hoping is that when a soul dies in this dimension, does his or her soul move into another universe or dimension? The mystics all say death is only an illusion, so when you leave this life, could the next universe or dimension create a new start for us? Quantum physics says that it's totally possible. Seeing as death would be too much of a shock, it could be just like you are having a dream, and when you die in the dream, you sometimes move right into another dream instead of waking up. Theorists believe this is how existence works. We could possibly be moving from universe to universe for eternity. The number of universes could be endless. In a way, there is now a unity between consciousness the consciousness between physicists and the mystics. Science has discovered what the mystics have been saying for thousands of years. There is a power holding everything together, but it is so subtle, even thinner than air, that it can only be seen by smashing it at nearly light speed to discover it. Even though they have proof of the Higgs boson, or maybe even of God's existence, they cannot know it intimately. They cannot understand how this particle holds everything together. There is something more to that their cameras cannot see, which is precisely how this particle is the stuff that interconnects all of life. To know this force holding life together, you have to dissolve into it. You have to become intimate, loving, aware, and conscious to know it. A camera can take a picture, especially a $15 billion one, but a picture has no heart and soul. If a mystic would have been involved, he could have saved the scientist so much time and trouble. The mystic's vision is much larger than the scientist, and in the past, religion took a stand against science, and science had to distance itself from religion. Religion was our first attempt to understand the unknown, and the mystics of the past could only give us what they were capable of knowing. I mean, do you think Jesus knew the earth revolved around the sun? No. He knew just what he needed to move mankind into a more loving world. Now, science wants nothing to do with religion, and for good reason. Mostly because religion is arrogant and claims to have all the answers. At least science is always open and can never make that claim. In fact, the agreement scientists make is one that at this time the subject matter can be agreed upon. And this agreement can change as soon as someone gives a theory, or even better, some proof that the subject matter has changed. Take a look at the argument of how long mankind has existed. Arguments keep changing with each new discovery made. I cannot blame scientists. If we agree with the scientific view of existence, then we have to ask why. Why were we placed here with nothing? We still have no clue as to why we had to learn everything from the beginning. Why would the structure of the universe and then human consciousness take such a long time to develop? Why would we not be connected with God from the beginning? Or were we, and somehow we lost it? To answer this, all I can say is that this is the way nature is. We are all born in the valley. The valley is where the nourishment is. Everything grows in the valley. Nothing grows on top of the Everest. Every being starts his or her journey in the valley. But deep within all of our souls lies a deep desire to know. To say it differently, we have an urge to know what life is like at the top of the mountain. We are deeply connected with these mountains and valleys. We are not separate. We are interconnected to everything. How can one climb to the top of Everest without nourishment and knowledge of climbing? For this reason, life always starts in the valley, and enlightenment or unity of consciousness is a peak experience. A mystic can take in all the aspects of good or bad, negative or positive, at the same time without dividing. In other words, he looks at the whole without breaking it into pieces to study it. Science works the other way around. First they dissect it, then they wonder how it works. My fear is that something valuable will be lost in the scientific process. This is where the mystic comes in. He can stop scientists from going down the wrong path and hopefully help humanity from following them. The mind works by thinking somehow that the past can change the future. And it can, but the energy that draws you into the future is destructive to your soul's evolution. The Big Bang Theory gives us a larger perspective of time, just like the relativity of flying in an airplane versus someone standing on the ground to observing things. To me, the Big Bang Theory is only a temporary explanation. It does not answer the question exactly from where did this explosion happen. It had to come in from something. Maybe what we see is our Big Bang. Maybe there have been several Big Bangs, and they just keep repeating throughout eternity. This might be a larger perspective, but this too will eventually lead to more questions. Can you see why the old man by the river casting his rod and sitting his tail in the mud just chose to let it all go and accept what is, and that's just it. It is. And this is why I say the fourth level of understanding brings you back to innocence. As Jesus said, "Let thy will be done." To me and the Tao, that will is to exist in perfect harmony, undivided, dancing, singing with joy at all the brilliance of it all. Let me explain it like this. The Tao says we are interconnected with everything. The air we breathe gives us life to the trees and the plants of the world, and in turn they provide us with air to breathe. The Earth needs the sun to keep life in balance between hot and cold, so the Earth depends on the sun. But the mystics say the sun also depends on the Earth. We are also finding out that our sun depends on other suns to create balance in space. Everything from the smallest microbe to the largest galaxy is interdependent and interconnected. This means we are connected to the whole universe, and the universe is connected to us. Jumping out of the text a little bit, I've been listening to some podcasts and some videos myself, and they say the Andromeda galaxy is heading towards the Milky Way, and within 5 billion years, our galaxies will clash 5 billion years from now. But one thing to remember is that the Milky Way galaxy has already absorbed several other galaxies in its journey. So that may not be the end, even though 5 billion years is a blink of the eye in the big picture. But it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be the end of our galaxy. Anyway, back to the text. The Tao says that even if a star disappears many millions of miles away, it will have an effect on us because the balance of life between our sun and the other sun was lost. If an asteroid took out one of the planets in our solar system, like Mars or Venus, there would be catastrophic events here on Earth. I have heard the other planets in our solar system are protectors of the Earth. Without them, we would be bombarded with huge asteroids that would devastate our planet. If we lost even one of these planets, the balance within our solar system would be lost. It's possible that this interconnection of stars and universe gave birth to astrology. Astrology could be the science of reading the stars and their interconnection with us. Astrology is as old as religion itself, and in its basics is not a form of a cult. The difference between a cult and astrology is great. The definition of a cult is a group of persons who either promise you something now, but you'll have to sacrifice something in the future, or if you sacrifice something now, then they promise you something in the future. In both cases, something from the present moment is pulled away from you, making you live a partial life. And true religion helps you to live wholly in the present moment. Only then can you know what love is. Then you are in deep love with the present moment. Then there is no thought of the future. And this is why Jesus says not to worry about tomorrow. He is in deep love with existence. His word for existence was Abba, meaning daddy. This was a term of endearment. The occult is always to the partial and never to the whole. It is partial because a piece of your heart's desire is either in the past or in the future, both of which do not really exist. Ask yourself, why can you not be happy in this moment? What is keeping you from being happy now? The answer lies in the tension created by the illusion of time. I have to give a great appreciation to anyone that's followed me so far through all that. That was quite a bit. That's really some out there thoughts. But this is a very exciting time to be alive in this world. 2016, 2017. I started writing this book in 2015. But anyway, this is a great time to be alive, and scientists are discovering more and more, uncovering what mystics have said all along. And that makes it very interesting. But when I say mystics, I don't mean biblical scriptures or Muslim scriptures or anything like that. That's not what we call mystical readings. Mystics were those that basically rebelled against society and found truth on their own. Jesus was a rebel, and Buddha was a rebel. These people were outcasts. Jesus rebelled in his way, and Buddha had a family. He had just given birth to a child before he went on his spiritual journey. So, he rebelled against, his kingdom. Okay, folks, I guess we'll wrap it up about here. Once again, thank you very much for joining me. Please check out my other videos, Beyond Death 1 and 2, the whole Wheels series, 1 through 8 now, String Theory, and Music in the Ninth Dimension, which goes into depth about how scientists have discovered that classical music exists in other dimensions inaccessible to most human beings. But anyway, please check out the videos, check out my work, my books, 10,000 Ways and Songs of the Buddhas, and take care of yourselves. Be good to each other out there. Thank you. Bye.